नाज़रीन, कश्मीर लाइफ के साइंस टॉक सीरीज़ में आपका खुशामदीद। जैसा कि आप जानते हैं कि हम इस सीरीज़ में काफ़ी टाइम से कश्मीर के उन साइंटिस्ट से बात करते हैं जो काम तो मुख्तलिफ महाजों पर करते हैं, लेकिन मौका उनको या तो अपनी लाइब्रेरीज से नहीं मिलता, या अपनी लेबॉरेटरीज से नहीं मिलता, या अपने ट्रैवल से नहीं मिलता। नाज़रीन, इस वक्त आपको जो सेट देख रहे हैं, हम इस वक्त एसपी कॉलेज उसके एक क्लासरूम में बैठे हैं। यह हमारे गेस्ट की प्रायोरिटी थी कि वो अमेरिका से फ्लाई करके आएँ और अपने ही कॉलेज में हमसे बात करें। तो आज हम आपको मिलाने जा रहे हैं डॉक्टर अल्ताफ लाल साहब से, जो दुनिया में और खुसूसन मुल्क में, भारत में एंटी मलेरिया कैंपेन पे काम कर रहे हैं काफ़ी टाइम से। डॉक्टर लाल साहब, आपका खुशामदीद शोभा।
शुक्रिया मसूद भाई, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। जैसे मसूद साहब ने कहा, जो साइंस और साइंटिफिक कम्युनिटी के मेंबर होते हैं, दे आर इनवर्ड लुकिंग पीपल। ये नहीं चाहते कि हमारा नाम आगे चले, काम आगे चलना चाहिए। कुछ काम हम करते हैं, कुछ काम फिर नेक्स्ट जनरेशन करती है। तो आई एम रियली हैप्पी that we have the next generation with us today.
Dr. Saab, before we walk the talk, can we have some idea about the malaria? तो आपने भी पढ़ा होगा 5वीं जमात से, हमें तो मलेरिया। हालांकि ये बात है कि मलेरिया इज़ नॉट एंडेमिक टू कश्मीर। हम तो एक दूसरे एग्रोक्लाइमेटिक जोन में हैं जहाँ हमें मखसूस किस्म के मच्छर हैं जो मलेरिया नहीं बनाते हैं। लेकिन ये जो मलेरिया है एक बहुत बड़ी मेलेडी बन गई है, बहुत बड़ा क्राइसिस बन गया है। तो व्हाट इज द स्टेट एंड स्टेटस ऑफ मलेरिया इन इंडिया एंड अब्रॉड?
Right. So the reason we don't have malaria in Kashmir is because the parasite cannot survive in mosquito midgut at this altitude. So malaria carrying vector exists here. So does dengue carrying vector. बट ये दोनों डिजीज़ें एंडेमिक नहीं हैं। दैट डजंट मीन ट्रैवलर्स मलेरिया नहीं होता, या आप बाहर जाएंगे आप मलेरिया लेके आ जाएंगे, बट यू वोंट बी एबल टू फर्दर ट्रांसमिट इट बिकॉज द मस्कीटोज वोंट बी एबल टू गेट द पैरासाइट और वायरस एंड प्रोपगेट इट। सो दैट्स वाई कश्मीर में नहीं होगा, जम्मू में होगा, एंड रेस्ट ऑफ द कंट्री में होगा। सो मलेरिया एक हिस्टोरिकल डिज़ीज़ है, एक एंशिएंट डिज़ीज़ है। इंडिया में एक टाइम था 1950 के करीब जब मलेरिया बहुत ही कम हो गया था। इट वाज क्लोज टू बीइंग एलिमिनेटेड। फॉर वैरायटी ऑफ रीजंस मलेरिया केम बैक। मोस्ट ऑफ इट इज़ एट्रीब्यूटेड टू मिसमैनेजमेंट ऑफ सक्सेस। बट आज की तारीख में the prevalence or burden of malaria has been reduced to more than 50% in India. But India still is a nation in southeastern part of the world where largest number of cases still reside. But malaria historically and present is a disease of sub-Saharan Africa. वहाँ पे falciparum malaria होता है जिससे cerebral malaria हो जाता है, pregnancy malaria में इफेक्ट करती है, अनीमिया काफ़ी होता है। इंडिया में और साउथ ईस्ट एशिया में वाइवेक्स फैल्सिपरम दोनों होते हैं। देयर इज़ अ ग्लोबल मिशन टू एलिमिनेट मलेरिया बाय 2030। बहुत कंट्रीज़ ने एलिमिनेट कर भी दिया है, करीब 40 कंट्रीज़ हैं जिन्होंने मलेरिया को ख़त्म कर दिया है। और देयर इज़ अ डिज़ायर एंड एन होप दैट इंडिया विल एलिमिनेट बाय 2030। उस सिलसिले में हमने 2016-17 से एक मध्य प्रदेश का डिस्ट्रिक्ट लिया। उसमें हमने जो भी एग्जिस्टिंग दवाइयाँ होती हैं, डायग्नोस्टिक टेक्निक्स होती हैं, या मच्छर से बचने के साधन होते हैं, वो यूज़ किए। 3 साल में हमने इंडिजिनस ट्रांसमिशन को काट दिया। सो वी नाउ हैव साइंटिफिक मेथडोलॉजी, प्रोसेसेस एंड मीन्स टू एलिमिनेट मलेरिया, प्रूवन। They existed on piece of paper, but we put them together and showed this is a district in Madhya Pradesh, Mandla, tribal district है, forest का areas काफ़ी हैं, but despite that, we were able to demonstrate that you can end malaria.
नाजरीन, हमारे जो मेहमान आज के हैं ऑर्डिनरी मेहमान नहीं है और सिर्फ डॉक्टर नहीं है। अमेरिका की डिप्लोमेसी का जो एक हिस्सा हेल्थ होता है, एक बार रिप्रेजेंट भी किया है और दिल्ली में मुकीम रहे काफ़ी टाइम। और इसके साथ साथ जो हिंदुस्तान की सबसे बड़ी फार्मा कंपनी है सन फार्मास्यूटिकल, वहाँ इनका एडवाइजरी रोल भी है और एक रिसर्च का प्रोजेक्ट भी ये ओवर सी कर रहे हैं। बट द जेंटलमैन इज़ वेयरिंग टू मनी हैट्स। तो इसके बजाय कि मैं कोई बात करूं, बेहतर रहेगा कि इन क्लासरूमों से जो आपका सफ़र रहा, तवील सफ़र रहा।
बहुत अच्छा सवाल है, एंड आई एम गोना एड्रेस देम दिस विद देम बिकॉज दिस इज़ द फ्यूचर। मैंने यहाँ पे बीएससी ऑनर्स किया बॉटनी से। डोंट आस्क मी व्हाई आई चोज बॉटनी। आई थिंक इट वाज द ओनली सब्जेक्ट जहाँ ऑनर्स ऑफर होता था उस टाइम पे। सो आई थॉट दैट आई नीड टू डिफरेंशिएट। आज की तारीख में सोच रहा हूँ मैंने तब क्या सोचा होगा, आई डोंट नो मैंने तब क्या सोचा था, बट मे बी आई वॉज ट्राइंग टू डिफरेंशिएट माई सेल्फ फ्रॉम रेस्ट ऑफ माई कॉलीग्स, पेयर्स, फ्रेंड्स। बॉटनी एक ऐसी चीज़ थी वेर यू कैन सी थिंग्स, राइट? Everything is open to you, colors and shapes and plants, whether it's green it turns yellow. फिर मैं कश्मीर यूनिवर्सिटी गया उन दिनों, और हो सकता है आजकल भी ऐसा हो कि आप अप्लाई करते हो बट दे डिसाइड वेयर यू गो। उन दिनों ऐसा था, उन्होंने देखा मैं बॉटनी का ऑनर्स, उन्होंने बॉटनी में डाल दिया, मगर एमएससी बॉटनी कुछ समझ नहीं आई। इट वॉज टू ड्राई। सो आई एम गोना से दिस, इफ समथिंग यू डोंट लाइक, don't do it. Chances are you're not going to succeed. फिर उन्होंने उठा के मुझे zoology में डाल दिया। That to me was so much formaldehyde. Zoology के lab में जाओगे, right? So that also didn't work. Maybe I was too persistent and they just wanted to get rid of me or दूसरों पे आ जाए। Chemistry दे दी। Chemistry was good because it was mechanisms, it was thing, मगर, and this comes to the teacher community now. एक टीचर होते थे, वो उनका नाम नहीं बताऊंगा, बहुत अच्छे आदमी थे वो, मगर वो जो पढ़ाने आते थे वो नोट्स लेके आते थे। That was a turn off for me. How is he teaching us with paper that has turned yellow? Even though he was teaching us the right thing, I conceptually disconnected with him. इत्तेफाक की बात थी, आजकल भी होता होगा यूनिवर्सिटी के बाद या एसपी कॉलेज के बाद, आप नज़दीक ही लाल चौक उसका चाय दाम उसका मेरा कज़न मिला तो लखनऊ यूनिवर्सिटी में द्रामद एमएससी बायोकेमिस्ट्री, एंड आई अप्लाइड एंड आई गॉट देयर। सो दैट्स व्हेन द जलेबी स्टार्टेड। यू टेक ए बस फ्रॉम TRC, you go to Lucknow through Jammu on a train and you navigate your future. इस दौरान ट्रेन रुक भी जाती थी कहीं पे। I'm talking this is in mid-70s. पैसेंजर ट्रेन में जाते थे, रुक जाती थी, तो कभी कभी रात के लिए रुक जाती थी, तो कभी प्लेटफॉर्म पे सो जाते थे। So what I'm trying to convey is, if you know where you're going, it doesn't matter वो जलेबी से जा रहे हैं या स्ट्रेट रोड से जा रहे हैं, बट यू जस्ट नीड टू नो वेयर यू गोइंग। सो वहाँ से PhD करके आई वेंट टू NIH. NIH is a premier institution of United States, part of Department of Health and Human Services. वहाँ से CDC, Centers for Disease Control. Then I was seconded to State Department through our ministry. I served as health attaché at the US Embassy. Then I joined FDA. And it was a beautiful time of my life where I could see the countries and their programs and how can you help them and how can you tell them you're wrong, which is part of doing right? And that was good 13-14 years of dealing with bureaucracy.
But when you finally decided that you have to be a biochemist and then you went to research and you did PhD, what were the takeaways from your PhD that helped you understand the chemistry better, the human chemistry better?
Yeah. That's a good question. We had a Kashmiri, Maharaj Kishan, who had just returned from US, faculty at CDRI. He said something, I don't know whether he meant what he was saying, but he said something that resonated with me. कहता कशर पट वोन तो पण अगर छि ना परान किताब मज, this is the life cycle of this thing, or this is how A results in B, assume they're wrong. Even though it's a textbook knowledge, assume it is wrong. Then you convince yourself. Poscha kin apuscha. तब मतलब क्या छु? पढ़न पे आपकी किताब मच पढ़न, वारिया किताब छु विचने. That was the beginning of research for me. Research is searching something, and often you research something. At CDRI, I worked on amoebic meningitis, which is a very deadly disease. Amoeba causes it, Hartmann-La Kalbatsanite amoebas now. Generally, people get it when they swim in contaminated waters, and almost everyone who gets it dies. I worked on a mouse model of that, but from there I went to malaria. And there's a story for malaria in me, and I was mentioning this before we started this conversation. It probably is good for you also. मैं आओ ऊठ में जमस बैठे malaria question is सब पांच इंसान से ना बात है इतनी मास ज़्यादा ऊठ में ते आओ नहीं में ते आओ दही में ते आओ कहीं में ते आओ BSCS ते आओ. I thought I knew everything about malaria. तो वन कन करो malaria से पेट कम. So I started working on malaria. That was the time some of the genes were being identified for malaria vaccine. I worked on the genes, I cloned them, I sequenced them. I worked on genetic diversity. I looked at malaria in Africa. I looked at malaria in Papua New Guinea, in Brazil, in India, many places. A lot of fulfilling work.
What were the takeaways, starting from your PhD and then moving to CDC? CDC, but the institutions you mentioned are world's most prestigious institutions in fighting, battling the key diseases that we are confronted with.
That's a relevant question and a related question. What motivates you to do that? What you were doing, what you wanted to do is you had to have a burning desire in you to do something. And you don't compromise on that. And we came from a time that education was still through books, right? And some of the times we weren't able to afford those books, to be honest with you.
Those were the days when we had 9 planets in our solar system.
Nothing was, ये कोरुस्त द्राव 5, Wikipedia ने भी दे दिया और उसने भी दे दिया, Mayo Clinic का अपना है. But the key is, as a student, I think I identified what student's job is. Whether you are a bachelor student, master's student, PhD student, or a postdoctoral student. The job of a student is to study. Post do ya mol, ya boy, ya mom, ya fellowship, ya panachizenan, side husbands, kam kara. But the job is to study. I think I realized that you had to be at your best to study. Study could be through experiments. Study could be just reading something. I think that culture and that commitment took me to institutions of excellence in the United States, and through that, I'm back circulating with you in place where I started.
So how did this research or interactions and investigations, a constant probing life, or the issues threatening life, help you in being a good communicator and handling the health diplomacy, fighting malaria?
I was with a bunch of students yesterday. They were trying to become entrepreneurs in selling their idea, and I told them, be bold. I think someone maybe in this college or somewhere may have told me to be bold but with boundaries. Bold should not be considered you had to shout. You had to get your piece out, and you had to think about that piece. You had to be systematic in communicating that piece. You could be wrong. I was wrong many times. I found out that I was wrong. And I went and I corrected it, especially if I was saying something to you, Masood Saab, and I was wrong. I'll call you tomorrow. Masood Saab, I think I was wrong. To correct that. And when you're bold and you're in a peaceful manner, when you have knowledge of the subject that you're communicating, chances are your soft diplomacy skills would allow the connect with the person, irrespective whether the person is a bureaucrat, a technocrat, or from political lineage.
One question I am so keen to ask you. You started with botany. So at the end of the tunnel, the long botany tunnel ends with a cell.
Yeah.
You went to zoology, you started with amoeba. Half of my life in graduation has taken by amoeba, which an organism I have never seen. So you again went the same cell.
Yeah.
And when you actually started loving biochemistry, you actually are treating the same cell.
Yeah. It's a beautiful...
Did you ever realize it, that you were always in the maze, but you were in the same edifice?
Yeah. So ये बहुत ही अच्छा observation है आपका, and I think if I had studied economics, I probably we could kind of do the same construct. But biology is a beautiful thing. The difference between plant and animal cells, it's got cell wall, this guy doesn't have cell wall, right? There's membrane and cell wall. Energy production is different here versus there. But at the end of the day, it creates a life here, and this also creates a life here, right? Those are the commonalities in the two life forms. Put in between the fungi and everything else, at the end of the day, it's all that chromosome, it's all those nuclei. You assemble them together, you created a life. Now, fast forward. Amoeba chu histolytica te, amoeba chu biak te, ak chu diarrhea karan, biak chu hemorrhage karan. It's the universe of life is so huge.
So huge.
So to understand little pieces here and there is like going through a library of life, where you don't have an entry pass, you are yourself the entry. How did that all convert into, I think what happened was incrementally, I may have gotten better in understanding the complexity. Har kah cheez shu simple and complex at the same time. We as people have simplicity but complexity at the same time. When you believe in yourself, you convince Masood Saab that she believes in herself. Your attitudes toward her changes or has to change. The key is, how do we convert this mass of knowledge base into a mass of intelligent knowledge base? You just reside that karan. You choose sonar chu banawan
Rolling stone.
You know, the hej banate hain, haar banate hain, set banate hain. Akh sonar se asan thoda jaan kargari ekishan asan theek. So key is to find in yourself that bright jeweler in beautifying your own ornaments, and ornaments is education here.
In such a long career, fascinating by all means, you loved it, you enjoyed it, so that's correct that we should essentially choose an area which we enjoy working with. But you have worked with different cultures, the diversity that you witnessed in science and in life. You might have studied cultures because most of the diseases are linked to cultures. But I just wanted to ask you one thing. How is the education system in other cultures, and how better can we manage if we start exploring to have a better new generation?
Yeah, I think the question is, how do we create holistic education?
Exactly.
Right? That is a deficit, not only in Kashmir, it's a deficit in the nation of India, perhaps in the South Asian. And the best answer was given to me by a clinician in US. I was talking to him about some charitable activities which we do, all of us, from time to time. And I was trying to explain to him, kya is karan? तो मैंने तौर फिक्र मैं तो बस नहीं उस ना simple तो ना ऐसे ना बही में पास मैं तो क्या चुका ना ना बही में ताई नहीं पढ़ना पात छुआ ऐसे पढ़ doctorate.
Yes.
The actual base है ना इस बही में है.
Exactly.
And he was so convincing. And I started thinking, that is a structural deficit. चुना ये च बही में कर चाहे engineering, medicine, except these bright girls and boys who are going to try to do, I'm going to do one hour bachelor's in something, try to learn something different, do masters in something. But it shouldn't be कि who to go no one should करना. Purpose पहले से ही define करना अपने ज़हन में, अपने दिमाग में, because you become a holistic person. Versus सुबह में हों ये खतरनाक डॉक्टर चु, because उसकी बेस बहुत कमज़ोर है, उसकी सोच बहुत कमज़ोर है. Translate that to United States. ताकि हाई स्कूल चाहता बहिम, ये तो हाई स्कूल जो दही मासा शायद चुना मिलते.
Wenges Bahim in new education policy.
उसके बाद 4 साल की आपको कॉलेज डिग्री करनी है. उस 4 साल में आपको हर कोई चीज़ पढ़नी है. मेजर चुके हैं कारुन, मगर पारुन सोरे, संस्कृत चुन पारुन, उर्दू चुन पारुन. You had to study English. You can take another language of your choice, but you had to study biologies, chemistries, physics, math, everything you had to study. So you create a grounded product. And that grounded product, even if he or she is going to go into economics or law or humanities, geography or sciences or earth sciences, base is very strong. I think that's the structural deficit or difference between education in this part of the world versus education across from waters.
The new education policy is trying to address that part of, basically we are copying certain things from the Western system of education, and perhaps we may see better things happening. But Dr. Lal, I just wanted to know one basic thing. The scientists have been telling me for all these days of this series that we are yet to reach the 4% of human body to explore it fully. So what are the newer challenges?
पहले मैं आपको ये कहना चाहता हूँ, I wanted to congratulate you and commend you for starting this series. I think the beneficiaries of your series are sitting here. 10 साल बाद आपसे बात करेंगे या इनका staff, Chuti.
Yes.
We want to make you become what some of those people Masood Sahib has talked to. So the question is, we only know certain percent of our body. We only know certain percent of anything for that matter. Only thing we know is genetically, all human beings, wherever we are genetically 99.x% related. So मेरी और आप में डिफरेंस कुछ नहीं है. क्या जैसे कश्मीर माजी सो जेनेटिक पूल चु ये थी कोई चुनस, बट मेरा और स्टॉकहोम में जो बंदा कोई अननोन है वो भी हम 99% पे है. बट व्हाट वी नो ऑफ एलिमेंट्स, सम डिसऑर्डर्स इन क्रॉनिक डिजीजेस सेटअप्स are not fully understood. We understand to some extent that we can create interventions. डायबिटीज को मेटफॉर्मिन से ट्रीट कर सकते हैं, कोलेस्ट्रॉल तो स्टैटिन लगन, मगर ये ना मालूम ये क्या है खसा है और ये क्या है पूरा. So science has given us something. So we got to be thankful to the art and vision of those people who understood and studied these things. We can treat malaria. We can treat TB, we can treat a diarrheal disease, or within a year a COVID vaccine, or so many COVID vaccines were created. That's the gift of that 4%. So even हमें 4-5-10% ही मालूम है, but imagine how much have we benefited from knowing that. So what is going to happen now, inshallah, in the next 5, 10, 15 years? That's where they come in. The genome is known now. Human genome is known. So you can imagine now, several years from now, we will know, okay, this is the deficit that causes this carcinoma. This is a genetic disorder that happens and it causes ovarian cancer or prostate cancer. My problem. So these are things that come sequentially. Go back to time in 1940s and 50s. Life expectancy, kya was? Tirsaski, I would not have been alive. Perhaps you would also be walking stick. Now people live 80 plus years wherever they are, and healthy 80 plus years. Yeah, they have some knee issues. Knee replace. So science has, mashallah, given us so much. The key is how do we keep on exploring? How do we search and then research?
How do we have the best question?
That's based on an answer to a question that may not have been the best. So a bad experiment at times, I've always used to tell my students, a failed experiment, I love those because it tells me something. Agar experiment theek chu gasan, it to me was a bottleneck now. But something that fails, I have 3 different avenues to look at. So failure, successes combine to give you answers that you look for in your life.
The Kashmiri conventional wisdom, dab nuk zor kadam aibra. No, but before concluding this conversation, this beautiful, impressive conversation, can you tell us about what is Sun Pharma doing against malaria now?
So Sun Pharma took a conscious decision in 2016. As the world was organizing itself to eliminate malaria, to end malaria, that let's demonstrate that you can actually do it. Kat karinche ahkat. Ban chalin athavsiche beahkat. So we chose a district which is harder district. Malaria was intense. It's tribal, forest areas, hard to reach areas. Sahlab source you want to sorry ilaqe ka sound, it would be cut off. So we developed some management and operational framework. And in 3+ years, we brought it to zero. And I believe we were able to do it because I managed that program as if I was managing a business. I had structural controls in place, management controls, financial controls, and technical controls. If she was working on my project, and I was in Atlanta, I would meet them every week. 9 baje, subahs, India time, I would meet them. I met them all 5 years now, except when I'm in Kashmir, because internet issues interfere in that. If she was the staff, I would know, or my program manager would know, ye katsan garan gai fever pushne. Imun katsan nafran ko diagnostic test. Kitun jutun dawa. Because she had a mobile app, whatever she was entering, the base was seeing. Agar stock is hasan 15 diagnostic kits. Dagina khatam, 5 rudna, central supply was watan, imigasan kam se kam 15 asin hamsa har jai. Treatment the gets house and sorry panasati. So it was run as a business, so that customer chu gamuk nafar. Portion temiz in kya, magar service wat na win. I think if you look at any disease control program, if you don't treat it as a business not for the sake of business, but to get the job done and hold people accountable, I think that was the reason our project, Sun Pharma's project, succeeded in Madhya Pradesh. In my view, and I know it probably isn't easily understandable, science is that complete knowledge of what you know in finding holes what you ought to know and what you need to know.
It was a great conversation, and hope we meet again with newer things and newer ideas.
Inshallah, and thank you so much for bringing me here and the new leaders that inshallah Kashmir Life will be meeting them in 10, 15, 20
Inshallah.
years, making them the best and the brightest.
Inshallah. Thank you, sir. So nice of you.